You're listening to the Discussing the Resilient podcast, hosted by Aidan Smalling and William Reid, a competitive 40k podcast for the servants of Nurgle and the fallen 14th Legion. Tactics, meta-analysis, and all things Death Guard. Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the Discussing the Resilient podcast. This time it's just me, Will, and this is the 6th instalment. Pardon me, frog in my throat. The 6th instalment in the solo series I do, which is Poxwalker Plague Marine. In this series, we focus on the games I played, mistakes I've made, things I would like to do differently if I could go back and turn the clock back, and things I'm, going to focus on avoiding to the same as I sort of track my journey of improvement through 10th edition. In this episode, we're going to recap on the Nottingham Super Major here in the UK. It was the last event that I played in the current ITC season. It was a week before LVO, so obviously LVO brings the season to a close. I haven't checked my current ranking yet to see where I finished in the year, but I think I'm from checking before LVO, I was second in the UK and 12th in the world with Death Guard. Obviously not overall. I'm a long way off those things. I mean, not that rankings are the be all and end all, as we've talked about previously in this episode, or not this episode, previous episodes. This episode, I'll sort of highlight that, and I go to an event, I set myself little targets, things that I'd like to aim for, things that I feel sort of for me are an accomplishment or something that I think I'm happy with the weekend. In this one, I'd set myself the usual that I set myself and go to a GT. There's two things that I sort of try and set myself, I guess. One is best Death Guard at the events, best as a few Death Guard players there, try and sort of be the best in the faction. And also, if it's a 5-round GT, to try and 3-2 is a result I'm more than happy with. But ideally, I like to try and get the 3-2 in the bag, before the final round. So in the 5th round, there's a 4-1 on the card. So the last round sort of exciting, and there's something to play for. But also relax because I feel like I've regardless of the win or lose the last round, I've got an outcome that I feel satisfied with, and I did achieve that at Nottingham. I went 3-2 with 4-1 on the cards in the final round. The final round was a very close game. The gentleman I played was an absolute star as well. Like, it was genuinely my most fun game of the weekend. Every opponent was great though. There wasn't anyone I could fault, but the last round in particular was a super game, considering it was the last one of the day. Normally you're both tired. Sometimes with 4 on the card, sometimes people can get a bit, sort of overexcited because the 4-1's a big deal if you're not sort of used to getting those kind of results. Which for me, I've had a couple of 4-1s or 3.5, 1.5s this year, but obviously I don't get a lot of 4-1s, unlike Aidan, who normally sort of pulls us out of standard. So to me, a 4 would have been a big deal, but at the same time, I was more than happy with the 3-2, and the final game was fantastic. It was really close, really fun, really fair, really friendly, and if anything, if they're the kind of games you want in every round, but especially when people are tired in the 5th round. Myself, I have to hold my hands up. I've definitely been a bit of a grouch in previous events, come the 5th round, a bit tired, or especially if you're frustrated or whatever. So this one was fantastic. But I'll run through the event. But I suppose I think people have mentioned in the comments on previous videos that people don't actually know what my list is. It stays pretty similar. The last episode I talked about some changes I made that I actually, in hindsight, especially on that particular terrain set, turned out to be a mistake and to my detriment, I guess. This time I kind of went back to what I'd done previously, but with some changes that I think I realised I wanted to make, but I went too far with them in the last iteration of the list. So I kind of tailored it back towards where I had been previously, where I've been having some success, but with the change I made. So I run through the list from top to bottom. I'll do it very quickly, as I say, and try and sort of recap for the people who maybe listening to this for the first time. So it's a bit of a different list. It's a bit of a skew, and it's one that I find fun. I don't think it's a list that everyone would enjoy playing, but it's got some bits, the more I've used and the more I've found them to be quite useful. So start with the HQs, I suppose, and I'll explain what's been brought in from the previous ones as well. So I've continued with the 3 biologist putrefiers. I have been quite impressed with them. Obviously, shocks, no shocks saying. I think the community as a whole has realised the power of those particular units. Obviously, They add Assault and Pistol to the Plague Minion they're attached to, and then the lethal hits on 5s is often a big deal as well. So they are really good. Obviously, of course, in the free grenade strat as well, another benefit to them. So 3 of them. 1 Foul Blight Spawn. Obviously obvious reasons. Given a squad fight first is a big deal. Then 30 Plague Marines, 4 5-mans, 1 10-man. The 10-man is all combat, max heavy plague weapons. It's mostly combat actually. Max heavy plague weapons, so 1 on the champion, then 4 on the normal Plague Marines. Then 3 normal plague weapons, so not the plague knives, the plague weapons, the AP2, strength 6, 4 attacks, hitting on 3s. And then 2 plague spewers, I think it is. I'm terrible with the names. I just call them flamers, and then explain a bit the special Death Guard flamers when thought of both. The ones at anti-infantry 2+, minus 1 AP, ignoring cover, and obviously torrents because it auto hit. So 2 of them because and the 10-man is normally attached by the Foul Blight Spawn, who also has a really good flame weapon. So the 3 sort of flame weapons together kind of combo quite nice with things like Overwatch, and obviously if you are going to sort of expose a Foul Blight Spawn to try and maybe kill something, it is worth having the extra 2 sort of dice worth of flame shots to sort of really sort of make that worthwhile. Then the 2 5-mans are all combat, with the exception of course the champion, who is always a heavy plague weapon, and plasma gun, because he gets some free. He's the only one that can take that option. Then 2 heavy plague weapons, and then 2 normal plague weapons, again back to the strength 6, the same profile described before. The 2 combat ones are generally attached to the Foul Blight Spawns, the Biologist Putrefiers, because they're lethal hits on 5s. They're generally a combat unit, and they want to trade in objectives. I feel that's, for me, I've found that's the best use of the lethal hits on 5s. I feel like the shooting attacks, you just don't roll enough dice for it to proc reliably, and if you're going to expose them to get some shots off, 9 out of 10 times around you expose them, either they don't hit or they don't wound, or someone makes of invuln saves, and then when you charge, you just kind of you don't quite roll enough dice to sort of do the damage you want in combat. So maybe it's kind of a bit too simplistic. I know that people do prefer the utility, but I've liked the 2 combat only ones, and it's been working well. I do the 2 5-mans keep the utility, so it's 3 heavy plague weapons, including the one on the champion, the plasma gun on the champion, another one with a plasma gun, because they might end up shooting, because they are a bit more utility, those ones, if there's no lethal hits on 5, so sometimes extra shots do sort of add up. So 2 plasma guns there, and then another one of the I call them plague flames, the ones I described before. Like I say, I'm terrible with the names, as people know who've listened to this series regularly. So that's the Plague Marines. 3 Rhinos. So the 3rd Rhino was an addition. Obviously, I had the Land Raider last time. Got that Land Raider for the 3rd Rhino. Obviously, I had been running Mortarion as well in the previous iterations that I've been winning with. I did drop Mortarion. Mortarion is how I fit in the extra 2 Biologist Putrefiers, the 3rd Land Raider. 3rd Rhino. I can't remember what else comes in with the points that I was spending them, to be fair. When I run through the list, I'm sure it'll maybe come to me, because I did drop Mortarion to... Oh, and the Plague Burst Crawler, the Plague Burst Crawler, is it? Because I had 15 points off anyway, so I was putting a pointless upgrade that was only there just because I had the points. I didn't really need it or want it, and never even used it. So between those Mortarion's points, extra 15, I think it worked out exactly. I could get an extra 2 Biologist Putrefiers, a Plague Burst Crawler, and an extra and a 3rd Rhino. And it seems to be the sweet spot, at least for this iteration, and my sort of take on Death Guard. So the 3 rounds I said, obviously Plague Burst Crawl, as we said. 3 Carnivores. I really like the Carnivores. I know a lot of people are high on Brigands, and I also know there's a lot of Death Guard purists who don't think Knights should be on the table with Death Guard. I do also play Chaos Knights as a solo faction. I have the Chaos Knights in depth as well. Obviously they're second to Death Guard, and also 3rd behind Nurgle Demons. If Nurgle Demons ever got the point when they were good, I would put Nurgle Demons maybe even on a par with Death Guard, because I do really like Nurgle Demons as well, as a mono faction, but they haven't been playable as a mono faction since 8th, or at least that I can remember anyway. Maybe at the start of 9th, though. I know there was that kind of like meat mountain list where it was just everything with 5 up feel no pain before the demons got the book and stuff. But anyway, obviously we're going quite a way far back for that, and certainly in the later stage of 9th, probably the second 2/3, since the demons got the codex, and also 10th edition mono Nurgle demons just hasn't been a thing. In fact, it's by far the weakest, almost pathetic way to play a demon. So obviously just a little bit of a side tangent there about the things they play. But I know there's people, when Aidan says he doesn't like Chaos Knights, and there's other people, of course. I listen to a few podcasts, people sort of don't like to see all knights on the table. They just think it's not thematic. Whereas I actually really like it. I like big stompy robots, so I'm on the side. But at the same time, everyone's entitled to their opinion. I also understand why people who don't like knights have that opinion, and I think that is also valid for them equally. So but I like knights, and I think the carnivores are good, mainly because I think the list kind of players I've talked about, it's kind of a primary denial list, because there's so much primary with the Plague Marines and the Knights having the OC8. I find it's good for the Knights to run on points, and also the carnivores hit like freight trains. I mean, they are a bit made of paper to slap back on some things, but the 6 attacks hitting on 2s, strength 12, with the damage d6 plus 2, they do generally go through most things, and because they move 14 as well, I find they add that sort of speed element that Death Guard often lack. And at 140 points, I do admittedly think they are possibly a little bit too cheap at that break point. They probably should be 150. I mean, they were 160 originally, and people were taking them then. And I don't know if they're about 160 maybe. I'd struggle to find those extra 60 points to accommodate the 3, but I have been thoroughly enjoying them. I think if they went to 150, no one would be surprised, and I would continue taking my 3, because at the time I'm recording this, it's the 22nd of January. The balance date hasn't dropped yet, but depending on when this goes live, sometimes we record them and then put them live a bit later. It might be live by the time you're listening to this. So at the time of recording, everything's kind of staying the same, but there are some things I expect to maybe go up on the carnivores in my list are on that sort of will they won't they sort of part of it. Same with the Plague Marines, to be honest. We talked about in the recent podcast where we introduced Death Guard Dave as a third host with me and Aidan. We talked about the things that we think could go up, could go down, and I do think Plague Marines are perhaps a little bit too cheap for what they do. When you look at them compared to other power armoured Marines, but only I think if they made them 90 points, I think that's fine, and I don't think anyone could really gripe about it. Of course, I'd like them to stay at 80 though, very selfishly. But anyway, so moving on to the rest of the list, two 3-man units and Nurglings. I find they're very useful. 10 cultists. Now, the 10 cultists, in my opinion, they're what, if you're going to consider playing tactical, you need to put 10 cultists in. They're the only thing in the Death Guard book that can reliably get to the centre objective on turn 1, because obviously you take the 6-inch scout move. On UKTC, a lot of terrain sets as a piece of terrain where you can kind of stage them, and then with the second 6-inch they can get to the centre quite comfortably, sometimes even wholly within the centre, or normally wholly within the centre actually, or within 6. So obviously certain secondaries like cleanse on the centre objective, area denial, I think you get more points if you actually have a unit on there as well. So if you're going to play cards, I do think you have to put cultists in for me. And this list is built to do fixed secondaries or cards. It can play both, and it plays both very comfortably. I never find myself struggling. Another reason why I have the 3 carnivores over the 3 brigands, which is what a lot of other sort of Death Guard players have been sort of allying in, is because I take 3 predators. So I've already got a little bit of shooting, and I don't really want 3 brigands and 3 predators. It kind of hits a point where you might just have too much shooting and then not enough stuff that kind of rushes onto points. Other people, of course, might disagree. I know the 3 Plague Burst Crawlers is common, but Plague Burst Crawlers goes for a very different role with the way their sort of mortars work. It's kind of clearing things that you can't see. Whereas the Predators, I kind of use them. I generally put something. I use them to sort of like answer things, that have like 24-inch range and kind of generally get a round or 2 rounds in there before they get a chance to sort of fire back. Because the Predators are made of paper, unfortunately. They do die very quickly, but the combo are nice with the carnivores, because if the carnivores sort of rush forwards and the Predators kind of fall out in the back to shoot something, there aren't a lot of armies that can kind of deal with them both. really they probably should deal with the carnivores, because the predators, as much as they are very swingy, you know, sometimes they hit things and I'm just like, oh wow, so that one predator's just took that out completely. Sometimes they nicknamed them the double one squad for a reason. They love to roll double ones on the las cannons, because so the predator destructors, so it's one with the autocannon on top. I think that is the full list that I can think of. The Plague Burst Caller, by the way, just holds a home field to where there's only one. And then the mortar's useful for either the battle shock and hits things, or also just kind of, you know, attacking people's home, behind sort of objectives behind walls. Because the Knights as well, the Carnivores, have also got 3 rocket launches, which kind of, between them and the Plague Burst Caller, you know, sometimes you can sort of pick at things like cultists and scouts. Maybe it's not scouts, actually. The Plague Burst Caller is the only thing that really can hurt them. So the War Dogs can, but it's not reliable anyway. So I'm trying to avoid going down tangents there. You know, guardsmen, stuff like that. So that's the list, though. Like I say, you know, players, you know, sometimes it gives away bring it down. So depending on what opponents take, sometimes if people take bring it down, you have to play kind of a bit more cagey and hide things and try and expose things. Late game, for example, you know, turn 4, if you head on the point, sometimes you just pull all the vehicles into cover and kind of, you know, hope that's going to get you the points. But anyway, that's kind of, you know, given a bit of the list. Maybe it's kind of people who've listened, you know, thanks for staying there, because you might already know what I'm running, but people hearing for the first time, it's probably a bit useful for them. So when I'm going to start running through these games now, it kind of, you know, what I'm talking about and what the context is. So I'll start beginning. I haven't made notes, so this might get a bit rambly as I go through, but there wasn't a huge amount of mistakes made. 'Cause in the last video, you know, as I say, I had a bit of a disaster. I think I was a bit hungover, made some list decisions that weren't right, and then maybe he's got a bit unlucky as well with some good dice rolls for my opponent, you know, and some bad dice rolls on mine in a couple of those games. So this time there wasn't as many mistakes made, but I still did make some, and there's definitely some interesting talking points, things to run through, because as I say, this series focuses on mistakes I've made, you know, things that, you know, this didn't work out for me, this is the reason why, this is the thinking, rather than focusing on the good things. Obviously we touch on the good things, you know, to give context to those mistakes, but obviously we've got Aiden and now Death Guard Dave as well doing their content focus around the decisions they made, why those decisions worked, why they were the good things to do, you know, how Aiden wins his game. So between, you know, Aiden sort of, you know, telling you what to do and, you know, giving good suggestions of good decisions to make, I can sort of also, you know, highlight the ones that maybe aren't good decisions, and between the two, you know, hopefully there's a sweet spot there. But sometimes, you know, as always important a caveat, what can be a good decision in one matchup can be a bad decision in another, you know, and we'll talk that as we go, because choosing to play the contagions can also be very sort of, it's not necessarily just down to faction, there can also be things to take into consideration with this. For example, you know, me and Death Guard Dave were both at Nottingham, and you know, there's a couple of games where Death Guard Dave sort of suggested me a particular contagion, but I had a different idea. I know I spoke to other people, and you know, often Death Guard Dave made the call, and I went with what he'd said. But there's a couple of times I went my own way, and it worked out that. But at the same time, when this kind of two contests could work, it's often like a coin toss, 6 of one, 3 of the other kind of thing, where, you know, I chose this one, but it could have been just as viable to choose another one. But let's start running through now anyway, because I like to try and keep these episodes a bit shorter to an hour, and I'm already sort of 20 minutes into this, and we haven't even started talking about games yet. So the first game was into Imperial Knights. Now, Imperial Knights aren't in a great spot, as people know. You know, is just the reality of them. They can still be a hard matchup though. You know, especially for some Death Guard builds that don't have a lot of anti-tank. I do have anti-tank. You know, I have quite a lot of it. Obviously, with the Carnivores, they kind of go through Imperial Knights pretty good actually, and the Predators as well. The Predators in this game whiffed just I think nearly every turn. I think it was only once when the Predators kind of popped off or even did anything remotely average, but it didn't really matter. I mean, this game, I talked about in the chat with Death Guard Dave and Aiden. I wasn't sure if fixed or tactical was right, and I did go with fixed. So did my opponent. Now, my opponent, in my opinion, made a mistake with his fixed choice, but he was a bit newer to the game, I think, and I kind of highlighted it to him after the game. But of course, I didn't at the start. You know, this is the thing. I think I highlighted this in a previous episode. What is player skill? the reality is with Warhammer, I think player skill sometimes just comes down to your knowledge of the rules and decision making, and kind of having more information to make a better informed decision. I don't think it's like skill at like say like a sport like football, American football, or UK football, soccer, where it's like physical. How quick can you sort of move? How quick can you sort of like analyze a situation and move your body to adjust? It's all about sort of like probability Warhammer, isn't it? So I think a lot of those decisions come down and understand the rules. And also at a tournament, you have to make decisions quickly. You can't sort of and and dither. You don't have like half an hour to sort of like make the right decision. Sometimes you're going to make it quite snap based in the later rounds. So this particular one, I think my opponent made a poor decision. Not a poor decision, no. Like maybe it's a rookie error, we'll call it, because there's no poor decisions, as I say. Like sometimes you make a mistake and you learn from it. And this is the whole point of this podcast. I certainly make enough mistakes. But he took Assassinate. So my list gives away Bring It Down. Obviously Imperial Knights, his list gives away Bring It Down. So we both took Bring It Down against each other. I think that was going to be inevitable in this game. And then I took Teleport Homers, and I also assumed he would take Teleport Homers because it just seemed the obvious choice. He had a couple of Assassins. I thought the Assassins would just score Teleport Homers all game. I put Nurglings or Cultists to score all game. And then it'll just come down to primary and Bring It Down score. And I also assume this one, I figured we both got pretty similar on Bring It Down. We're kind of giving it away. I give it away easier because I've got, my Predators and things don't have invuns. But again, I had kind of range on my side. The Predators could shoot at range with AP, whereas he couldn't really do that in response. He had the small knights. I don't know what they're called, the Imperial ones, where it's like the chain sword and the kind of melter gun. So he's only really 24-inch range, so I could get the Predators popping off, with the exception of his two big knights, actually. And there was a mistake, actually, I made with the big knights anyway. So we'll start with the third. So he took Assassinate. Now, as soon as he took Assassinate, I knew what I was going to do. So the 10-man Plague Marines, I still attached Biologist Putrefier and the Foul Blight Spawn. The other two Foul Blight Spawn, I didn't attach to squads. I left them in a Rhino. The intention they were never going to come out that Rhino, and they were going to just stay there all game to deny him 8 points on Assassinate. And I was, because I took Teleport Homers, it was going to be pretty easy for me to get 3 in the middle every turn. So I was thinking, well, he's going to get 8, I'm going to get 15, which already gives me a head start on the secondaries, before we even look at Bring It Down if we equal that. Because I thought we'd go toe for toe the first 4 rounds, and I'd just have to deny his primary for a turn. Hold him to 5 in the primary, and I scored 10, and that would be where I'd win the game by around 5 points. And it did kind of unfold similar to that, to be fair. At the game, we realised he did accidentally mark down an extra Assassinate point because he thought I'd attached him to the unit when I had him, but it didn't matter. I won by about 5 points. It was like, I think I was in the high 80s and he was in the low 80s, because he did skill score, he scored better against me. So the overall tactic is kind of, as I said, I knew I had to deny, hold him to 5 in the primary for 1 turn, and then him, apart from that, both going 10 for 10 was fine. And then I also, obviously, I got, I think I got Teleport Homers twice in his deployment zone. So I also got ahead on that as well. I did win that game. So the mistakes I made in this one, really, there was one mistake, actually, because he had a Forge World Knight and he had Canis Rex as well. Now, I set up a carnivore charge where there was kind of 8 inches to both, because I thought I'll be able to kill it, and then when I kill it, the other, I'll be able to sort of like be in a position where the other one's kind of roughly, it can't move because it can't move by carnivore, so I'm kind of stopping him from getting that centre objective as easy, again part of holding him to the 5 on primary for a turn. Now I could have charged the wrong one. I charged the Forge World one because I didn't ask the question, and I knew this really, because the same for the Chaos ones. I had a fight with him in combat. Well, obviously I would have gone pretty much straight through Canis Rex. So I took the AP Contagion, and I moved a squad of Cultists to put them both in Contagion. So I unloaded the Predators into them, into both, kind of, because I couldn't see them both where I deployed. So I have the ones that could shoot one, the other, thinking I'd chip a few wounds. I even thought I might just charge the one that takes the most wounds to sort of make sure I reliably finish it, which is what I actually did. And then I charged the Forge World one, which had a 5 minute in combat. Had I charged Canis Rex, I would have just gone straight through his armour and probably just picked him up in a one-er. But instead I charged the Forge World one with the 5 Bimvun. He made a couple of 5 Bimvuns and did live. So it was one of those ones where I didn't get through his big knights as quick as I could, which meant he kept killing my vehicles. We got a high Bring It Down score because he kept his sort of assets to do that. But apart from that, though, as I say, the game unfolded pretty much as I'd expected it to, and I did get the win. So, now going to the second round. And the second round, this is, I think, the one where I made the most mistakes. It was a gentleman, Danny Everson, I think is his name. I might have put him Everson or I think it is Everson, yeah. Sorry, Danny, if you're listening, if you did say, and if I've butchered your name wrong. Now, he's a known player around the north of England. Probably maybe the UK scene on a whole. Actually, he goes to a lot of events and smaller GTs. Maybe it's like sort of 60, 70 person ones. He's kind of someone who you would expect to maybe see on the podium, or sort of certainly sniffing around the top sort of 4 or 5 places. Maybe second, higher. Maybe I've been at GTs. I think he's even won them, to be fair. So we haven't played before, but we recognise each other's face. So it was quite good. And on this mission, it's UKTC. It's the one where there's so the previous mission one where you burn an objective. By the way, no one burned an objective, so I didn't mention it. But this one is the one where you get kill more and hold more, which for my list is 9 out of 10 times. It's a struggle for it because my list is very MSU, as I ran through at the start. I can kill things, but Danny's list was a lot more elite. Although he had things I could kill, I was struggling to get. He basically got kill more every turn. I think there was one turn I might have had kill more, or maybe I think it was one turn when no one got kill more because I equalled his score. I don't think I ever actually scored kill more. But I generally did get hold more, I think, on a couple ones. So the primary was kind of similar, with the exception of, because it's the one where you can score on your first turn of killing kill more. He killed and killed more on his first turn, which put him 8 points ahead. And then we both played cards in this one. We both played. I think he did fixed actually. So I think he did bring it down and teleport homers, which was very smart of me. Provided cards because he wasn't really giving anything down. He had the weird list with the Space Marine list with the Storm Ravens dropping off Dreadnoughts, because Storm Ravens can carry Dreadnoughts, and also can't remember what the guys inside are called. Vanguard Vets, I think, can carry, so 10 guys with jump packs. I think it's a bit, in my opinion, I think that's a bit of a silly interaction from GW. I think it's odd that a flyer can sort of go into hover mode and sort of like drop off Dreadnoughts and have fast moving guys with jump packs jump out. It's like, why can you put 10 jump pack guys in there but you can't put 10 say possessed into a Rhino? Like, surely it should be 5 and not 10, unless it was 5, and I might have called that wrong anyway. Maybe it was 5, I don't know. But anyway, so he basically got the kill man. We had one sort of contentious moment in the first turn where I'd set up a Rhino deliberately with half its sort of bum end sticking out behind the ruin, thinking if it got destroyed, I'd be able to. I actually thought I'd be able to put 2 squads down, but I think really it was only ever going to be 1. But then he sort of felt that actually I couldn't even do it with 1. Where I think if I'd have taught and I'd explained to the start, which is an error I should have done, I should have sort of explained so what I'm doing. We could have agreed it, yeah or nay, you can or can't do that, and then we wouldn't have had to sort of have the backwards and forwards. But as much as that, it was fair on both sides. I kind of think of those kind of rules disputes as more anyone who follows, say, soccer in the UK, like a 50-50 challenge. Like you're both going for the ball. You both have equal rights to sort of like to sort of look at it from your side, but one person's going to come out on top. And we did call a judge over. The judge was kind of umming and ahhing, but he did side with Danny on that one, and and it was fair enough. Like I think when the judge came over and called, I had to sort of hold my hands. But I think I should have explained. I think if I put the Rhino at a slight angle with its bum sort of going in, I could have pulled it out. But the idea was, I thought if I went first, I want to rush this Rhino onto the objective nearest home deployment and sort of have it so I can kind of maybe move block his planes a little bit, certainly make it hard for him to move, and then have it so that I can sort of start threatening his objectives and try and sort of cut him down on the primary. That Rhino deployment was also a mistake. We kind of talked about it after the game, me and Danny, because Danny is a good player. He's probably a better player than me. Well, definitely a better player than me. I think I've got to hold my hands up and say that. We had it so we agreed I probably should have put the Rhino behind the big piece of terrain, kind of where it wasn't that, and then slid it into the channel and pushed it up so it was going towards the middle terrain to sort of hide it and sort of park it so we could kind of threaten the centre objective and then come out and still get to his objective with sort of like an advance and a sort of a decent like 7-inch charge or something. And he was right, and when I thought about it afterwards, I wouldn't have given him that kill on the first turn, or certainly not an easy one. And then, so he wouldn't have got his 8-point swing. I think as it happens, I was a little bit unlucky with some of my card pulls. I think I had a turn where I wasn't able to score anything. I think I burnt something that I couldn't score and then drew catch enemy outpost or something. So it was like, I spent my CP to burn something and then couldn't score it anyway. So there's a couple of bits like that, but I think because I didn't get the kill and he had the kill more, the writing was, like I say, I think I taught in a couple episodes of my solo series, so the same thing happened to me. I got the kill and the kill more on the first turn, and it just kind of snowballed there in my favour previously, and this kind of was the opposite. I think on that mission, if you don't get at least a kill on your first turn, so if you get no kill and they get kill and a kill more, unless you start pushing for the table or, things really in the late game kind of swing in your favour, you generally it's generally a loss. I think, it's one of those ones where you can see the writing on the wall, and I certainly felt that. I pushed hard into him later in the game to try and claw it back and things, but I was always kind of up against it. So it was a good win on Danny's part. I was trying to think if there's anything else that I really did wrong, focus on the errors and the mistakes. I think that deployment error, and then obviously the kills probably, and then also not verbalising what I was trying to do with my Rhino. As it happened with the Rhino, it was a mistake because it could have been avoided. He actually missed with the Dreadnought that could team anyway and kill them anyway. So it was actually a bit of a moot point, but the mistake is more I didn't verbalise what I was thinking. We could have had a conversation before we even rolled dice to shoot. Where he'd have said, well, I agree that what you're saying is right if you do that, or he disagreed and I could have done something different and we wouldn't have had to waste 15 minutes or so with a judge having to come over and have a bit of backwards and forwards. So, I have to hold that was my mistake, really. And Danny took it very well. It was one of these things where I think there was a bit of frustration because in the later turns, I think he was worried we weren't going to get through all 5, but we got through it comfortably. I think we even had 20 minutes left on the clock. I think he was thinking that my turns would take longer than they did, but I didn't really have a lot I could do to push back into him. So it all worked out completely fine, really. And it was a great opponent. It was really nice to play at the end. Like I say, we had a bit of talk and some stuff I could talk about on this podcast, things I could have improved, and that's where we suggested about the deployment, and I actually took that into account in another game which has a similar map and did what he said, and it was the right decision. It's something that going into other games I'm going to take on board. So it was really good. I don't think there was many more mistakes than that, just the verbalising, the misdeployment of the Rhino where I didn't really take into account the kill more. Had I gone first, maybe it would have been a completely different story. Maybe it's what I was trying to do. Would have been the right. But I was playing to go first, and I didn't need to do that. Was the the error, the big error really in that one. And I did lose that round. So I've got to that was one of the ones I thought about it afterwards and tried to think what I could do differently. And I think that is those things we've covered. So I'll move on to the next one, like I say. So the next game was into a guy called Marcus. Now, Marcus Doyle is a lovely guy. He's actually from my local area. One of these weird ones. We've gone all the way to Nottingham to play people who live within within 40 minutes drive of each other. And Marcus is a great guy. He runs a fantastic event called Winehammer here in the north of England, which is in Holmfirth, which is the same place where Last of the Summer Wine is set. If anyone from the UK has seen that show, probably have when they were kids. If anyone from the US hasn't, it's basically a show where it's like old age pensioners live in this picturesque village, I guess. But the old age pensioners still go on like the teenagers. They've got crushes on each other and the hang out and do silly adventures. It's not the best TV show, to be honest. It's quite dated. It's quite naff comedy, to be fair, but at the same time it's quite iconic in the UK for its time. So he's playing on that with his Winehammer events, and like I say, he's also played at our events I think before as well, the Stonehammer ones that we run. But great guy anyway. So we had a game and he had a list which is all big bugs basically. It was like a Tyranids list that was just big bugs, and I kind of had a feeling of that. Now, I was really tempted to do Teleport Homers and Bring It Down here, but I wasn't sure if Bring It Down was a bit of a trap, because although he had all big bugs, I wasn't convinced that I was going to kill more of them than he was going to kill a mine if we both did Bring It Down. As it happened, he did cards as well, so we both did cards, both did tactical, and it made it a fun game. I think maybe he should have gone Bring It Down against me, but I don't know. So in this one, this was a funny game. Now, I'll talk about my tactics for the first couple of turns, because the first couple of turns tactics, I did have a tactic, and it's actually something that I pinched off Aiden, to be fair. So I'll have to I owe Aiden one of many drinks for his tactical genius. But what I did on this turn was, so I'll explain why it was weird. It was weird because Marcus's dice, I mean, obviously I talk about people's dice, having bad days with the dice, happens to us all, but I've never seen a day as bad as this. It just couldn't stop rolling ones and twos. There were Hellstorm dice, Mikey from Hellstorm Gaming. There were dice, like branded with Hellstorm. They weren't his dice. So I was joking halfway through. He probably would still email Mikey with a letter of complaint, saying his dice are faulty because they can only roll ones and twos. But it got the point where it was comical. I had, for example, a 3 wound carnivore left with, I think, the Norn Emissary. The big one looks like the Queen Alien from the Aliens films, and then 2 of the I forget what they're called, like Maleceptors or something. I don't know. There's a couple that are like 2 of the same kind. I always forget which one they are. It's like let's call it a Maleceptor. I don't know if it actually was a Maleceptor, to be fair. I should have checked this. It's like a brain bug type thing. It's the one that previously in 9th edition was used to spam out like the flat 3 mortal wounds when it did a psychic power in there. It was a bit of a problem. I think it is a Maleceptor. And he had 2 of them and the Norn Queen in it, and the 3 wound carnivore. They all rolled into it. I think just one of them had to hit and wound. I don't even think I got a save against it. He couldn't hit with anything. Like literally, like all the dice just missed. And then the ones that did hit, he just rolled a 1, one or 2 to wound, and it was a bit of a sad day for him in that sense. So I'm not going to claim any skill in this win. The only sort of real thing that kind of like worked in my favour was on the first turn I just gave up primary. I just scored my first turn objective. He went first because I knew going second, if I could whittle his army down, I'd be able to catch up on the primary in the final turn. And also, I knew if I pushed out, I was going to trade, because he had the lictors on the forward deploy on the 2 objectives. The one with 4 objectives, sort of the middle splits. So it was a 6 objective mission. So it's quite easy to score primary on. I could have denied him and held him 5 in the first turn by killing the lictors with carnivores that could get there. But I thought I was trading the carnivores. I was trading down on that, I felt. So I thought the best thing to do is just let him have it. I know the big bugs would come in and save my assets, just keep everything hidden for when the big bugs are there, and then sort of go through them, and hopefully in the later turns I've killed enough big bugs that he doesn't have anything to stop me from sort of like scoring more primary, and maybe sort of second last turn holding to 5 then, rather than sort of like try and rush out and play all my cards on the first turn. Just tempo the game a bit, which is something that I know Aiden does. So we've taught a few times. He said he sacrificed first turn of primary, knowing he's going to sort of feeling confident he's going to get it late in the game. And I took that from his book, so I kind of held fire and went for it. And then because his dice were so bad, I mean, there's not really much that I could do wrong, to be fair. Like, his dice were so bad that he couldn't hit or kill anything. And then it was one of those ones, he couldn't even make saves after certain points. So things that shouldn't have killed stuff did, like bolters and havoc launchers on predators. Obviously, I took I took the extra armor contagion, but bolters and havoc launch on predators were like halving. Everything was hitting and wounding, and he just couldn't make any saves. It was just one of those games, really. But he took it really well, because we know each other. We had a bit of banter about it, and he got to the point where he just thought it was he thought it was hilarious how stupid the dice were being. So that was one of those ones, really. So there's not really much more to say about that game. So going into second day then, so at this point I'm kind of, we had like drinks and stuff in the hotel. It was nice. We had like a nice evening and things, and waiting for the parents to come. And I got paired into Votan, so it was a bit of a weird pairing, Votan, for me, because I'd never played Votan before in 10th edition, like at all, apart from one game I played on that Thursday before Nottingham GT, and I played them on a UK TC map on the 4th mission. So it was kind of like, and it was almost the same list as well, so it was kind of a bit of a deja vu, like, wow, this is this has worked out in my favour. So I had a bit of a head start. I had sort of prior knowledge, and I played the game, because against a friend at our local club guy called Henry, who's lovely, and he kind of taught me through how a lot of it works. And I'd won that game, but I'd also through winning it, I'd seen what worked and what didn't, and was able to sort of even improve on that battle plan. And basically the big thing about that battle plan that I found that worked was forward deploying the Nurglings, because they get a scout move, Votan, and just shutting down their scout move, so they couldn't really push out, because they had short range, and I knew I could use the Predators. I could have range on him, so the 3 Predators would generally get a round or 2 rounds of shooting before the average 24-inch range on the Votan would get into me. As long as I screened to stop the bikes that can pick up from the board edge and come down, I felt, I kind of had the range on him. And then again, so there was, me and Death Guard Dave had a bit of talk about this one. He felt I should have took -1 ballistic skill and weapon skill, which I think is fine in the Votan, because they do have a poor weapon skill and ballistic skill. So if you can make them hit you on 5s, obviously that adds up quite a lot. But the reason I didn't, I think they also have judgment tokens where they get a reroll. That's against another thing where maybe you don't. It's not as impressive as he did. I didn't know in this game is because a lot of his armour is still effectively a power armour save. The vehicles have 2 and 3 up saves. The average infantry is only a 4+, but he also had the Terminators, and I think he had 2 bricks of the 2 up save Terminator equivalents from Votan. Sort of an invuln, but obviously the extra AP goes a long way in picking up those squads, because they do have an Arm of Contempt type strat as well. They can take a bit of AP off you. And that was the right contagion, I think, because anything I could have connected with, I did pick it up. And then because I was able to block him in his deployment zone, he just wasn't really able to sort of compete on the primary. And then because I was sort of pushing against his deployments with the Nurglings, I just kept pushing things at the ball and holding him back. And I had things in position to score cards, engage on all fronts, things like that. And it did go quite well for me. I think I made one mistake actually in this that I think I was a bit lucky with. I deployed a Rhino long ways against the middle objective, thinking that was the quickest way to slide it out and then push into the objective nearest his deployment zone. But what I realised afterwards, which is came from the game against Danny, I should have just done this from the start. I should have put it long ways, so it's narrower and easier. He wouldn't have got lines on it. And then use the turn part of the movement to get to the middle and not push to his deployment zones. Park in the middle, hold that, and then disembark and get there the following turns. So from turn 3, 4, and 5, I can attack the objective outside his deployment zone, which I didn't do. I deployed it long ways where he was able to get shots. Luckily, he whiffed all his shots. We didn't kill the Rhino. The Rhino was at that point then able to do what I'd intended, and then it was quite good. So. One thing Votan are good at though, they have a lot of shots, even in Overwatch. So there was one bit where I needed to score a tempting target, which was he said the one nearest his deployment zone, and I originally was thinking I'll get the guys out 8 the Plague Marines in the centre Rhino and then sort of charge them. But then I realised he was going to Overwatch and probably just pick them all up, so that wouldn't really work. Even if they're 1 or 2 lived, I wouldn't have the OC to get there. So I realised, because to stop Overwatch I had to do in advance. I did have CP, but it was like a 5-inch advance to do it. But I was up on the scoreboard anyway, and it was kind of like it was kind of luxury points at this point in some senses. So I took it. I think of all the 3, and I used the CP and rolled into a 6, which was very lucky on my part. And that shut him down for primary. It held him to 5. Scored me 5 miles. So basically a 10-point swing. I think that happened on turn 3, and from that point I think the game was kind of put to bed there, and he was just sort of playing for as much points as he could. Lovely opponent. We stood and had quite a lot of conversation about the end of the game. It turns out he lives in Leeds, which is close to where I'm in Manchester, and we had similar music tastes and stuff. So we sort of had some nice banter. It was a lovely fella, and he said it was only his first tournament, so some of the things that I was able to get away with, I think, was on his part, maybe some things he didn't think to do. Because I said I was surprised he didn't charge the Nurglings. I forward deployed to block him to so fair play it. He would be stuck there, but at least he'd be able to get past them. He sort of just tried to shoot them off instead of charge them, and sort of use movement to to then sort of, get through them. So that was saying they might not have changed the game too much, because he was still far back, and the Predators in this game decided they weren't going to whiff. They were going to make up for the first game where they couldn't hit anything. They were going to sort of come to life a bit, and they did do a lot of damage in this game. So like I say, there was deployment errors both times actually, like the game I'd lost against Danny, and also this one. What I did with the third Rhino, I should have done the same thing in them both. Deployed it either long way, so it was like, I'm trying to think how you would describe it long way. So like the long side of the Rhino is probably the long side of the board, because it's on like a diagonal deployment, so you can kind of cover it. The way it works, it'd be very hard to get lines on it from there, because the UKTC is a centre of middle piece of terrain that blocks it off. I'm trying to think what else I did wrong in this game. Again, it turned out a bit one-sided, because I did pull cards that were quite lucky, and then I was lucky with some of the cards that the one I talked about rolling the 6-inch advance on to sort of do it. So that was that really. Now we'll come to the final game. The final game, as I said at the start, was fantastic. I can't stress how much I enjoyed this game, especially because at this point I'd reached my target of being guaranteed 3-2. I was 3-1 at this point, but obviously final game, 4-1s on the cards, but 3-2s guaranteed. So I was very, very, very relaxed, very comfortable. And I've been talking to a guy on our team called Andy Mitten, who is an absolute gent as well, I have to say. He's kind of a new addition to our team, and he's an absolute star. He started tournaments recently, and he got best sportsman at Leicester, and that was only like his first like big GT. Just goes to show how lovely a guy he is. But he's played Necrons Canoptic Court a few times, so through doing that he had a bit of knowledge, and there was a lot of them at this event. It seemed almost inevitable if you were going to go 3-2 or better than 3-2, you were going to come up against them at some point. So he kind of helped me a little bit. I've been picking his brains on the lunchtime, because he played them earlier in the day as well, and I drew Canoptic Court in the final round. Now, I still didn't have much of a clue what was going on. As you can see, I'm terrible with the names of stuff, how I sort of describe things as to what the Ardsky rules and what models look like. So even though I kind of like call things by the names, I was trying to work out what they were to look. So there's one thing on his list. It's the I still don't know the name now, which is terrible. The little kind of Necron equivalent of bikes, basically. They're kind of like fast 2-wound things. I think when they shoot to get to move again, they use a lot. They do score a lot of their points, apparently. So Andy had said to me, I knew the name of the unit because they were the bottom two things on the list, like to kill them first. So I found out what they were, and then just said, what are these? And then my opponent sort of very generously, well, not generously, showed me them on what the models were. So I knew I had to get rid of them first, or early in the game, not necessarily first. And he had the two squads of Wraiths. So it was kind of the two big bads, two Immortals, and the Immortals weren't, the FAQ wasn't in place. Immortals could just do endless dev wounds, and what else? It put two Catans, the Nightbringer, and the other one, the Void Dragon, I think it is it? Oh no, it's the one that comes with the Tesseract Vault. I never know the names of them. The one that's, basically the two good ones that everyone takes, or at least one of. You had both of them. The kind of War of the Worlds looking thing, it's a game to describe what models look like, that is good for Overwatch because it gets a full reroll of being in the powered on objective or powered on quarter of the board, because how Necron secondaries work, or their army rule works. So I'm describing this very badly. If you want to learn how Necrons work, my description is not how to learn how Necrons work. But this was a fantastic game. He was a genuinely brilliant opponent. Now, the reason he was so good was because I went up and I had a bit of an inkling, but I also really had no clue, to be honest. I kind of knew what some stuff could do, and I wasn't quite sure how it did it. He was an absolute gent, and like he said, don't worry, I'm going to explain everything to you, and he did. And throughout the game, he was always telling me, like, anytime, because the race could kind of like reactively move 6 inches. Anytime I moved him 6 inches, he reminded me. He was so good. He didn't need to do that, especially after the first time. He was really fair. He'd take back. Because even times that I'd like declare something as a target, and he's like, "Are you sure you want to declare that at the target? Because this might be better." And like sometimes, like, I'm always skeptical when opponents do that, because I'm always like, do you just want me to shoot the other target because you know I'm going to do something that could hurt you? But he was genuinely doing it in a nice way, that he was pointing out things that were the right thing to do, and that was lovely. And I tried to be as best I could in response, and kind of really fair with takebacks and stuff like that. And he said he was only going to roll his dice in the tray. I never do that. I just throw them all over the table. The table was like a disaster with my dice everywhere. I don't think. But he said if it bounced out, he wouldn't call it. And there's one time it bounced out and it was a 6. And he rolled it again. And I was like, "Whoa, mate! You've rolled a 6. Like, don't panic. Have your 6. Like, that's a good roll." And he stayed true. And I think his 6 was on the 1. And absolute gentleman and stuff like that. And he was so sound that we were making jokes. I mean, I had good rolls. His dice weren't the best on a couple of instances, which we'll talk through. And I had good rolls. And instead of being like, "Oh, damn, as if you just rolled this on 2, as if you just rolled an 11 on 2 dice," he'd be like, "Oh, mate, buzzing you for all 11, that high five and stuff." And I was like, "Mate, you're so sound." So I was trying to be the same in response, and I think it would be hard to be as sound as he was, because he was so lovely. But at the end, even though the win didn't go my way from the start, I felt so happy about the game. It was really close. So I'll talk it through now anyway, after sort of leading that, because you're such a nice guy. So basically, we kind of deployed. I kind of deployed sort of things so I could attack the left and right objectives. And I took the big thing I took some from Andy's advice, was the -1 OC, and 100% it was the right thing to take, because it meant his warriors and immortals struggled to hold points against my plague marines, so I could kind of just stand on points without having to engage, and kind of not having to engage them in combat, and I mean not engage in terms of engage in different quarters. And sort of, I could kind of hold in the primary and keep them honest there. So that's kind of what I did. In that sense, we had a lot of backwards and forwards. Now, I made a mistake here with the Plague Burst Crawler, I think, in hindsight. So the Plague Burst Crawler, so one thing to mention, I'm going a lot backwards and forwards here. I know this game, I've kind of maybe gone backwards and forwards. So one of the things that I was told by other people going into this, or Andy and a couple of other people that are good. So the race, when you attach the character that reanimates them, they get the infantry keyword because of the character. So they don't get infantry keyword they don't become infantry models. But when you shoot the unit, if you've got anti-infantry 2+, you get the anti-infantry 2+, because the infantry key is added to the unit. So all of a sudden, the flamers were there were going to be money in this game, and it was pretty obvious that there were going to be money. So I the Plague Burst core I've got has 2 on that's what I've put on them, the spitters. So I kind of deployed it where I could threaten the middle and threaten one of the objectives just at the deployment zone, both in Overwatch and also kind of reactively sort of, move it to sort of flame stuff. And also it's got quite a bit of OC. So in that sense, I thought it would be good to sort of push forward, because normally I put the cultists forward and they go in the middle. I was core deployed, I didn't really need to do that. And I wanted to stick the middle objective, but he highlighted me if I did that, he'd just move the race forward and then he'd take it anyway. So I was just feeding my unit, and again, very great opponent. He didn't need to highlight to me at all. He could have just let me make that mistake. So I don't think I should have put the Plague Burst Crawler there, though. In hindsight, I gave the Plague Burst Crawler turn 1. His race came forward. They picked up. They picked up the Nurglings. I had this behind the wall, and rightly so. He was trying to take my scoring units off me, wanting me to start playing the game with having to sort of go and send carnivores to do actions and stuff like that, which is the right thing to do. That's kind of how we're going to win the game, because he wasn't giving anything away on fixed secondaries. We both played cards, and when I was playing cards, we're a slow army. I'm still death guarding. I've got carnivores and stuff, and 1 Nurglings I put in deep strike so they could drop down somewhere, but he played it right, the way he basically made it so it was going to be hard to score cards, which was definitely the right thing for him to do. So he got some Nurglings and the Plague Burst Crawler, which I put quite close to the centre. Now the reason the Plague Burst Crawler was an error is because I don't know what they're called. They're kind of how would you describe a metal centaur again? So you could run various memes about me describing other armies units and probably Death Guard ones. Like a metal centaur. It's really good at shooting. It's kind of like a hover platform, like a Necron standing on top, or like a torso of a Necron with a massive gun, like a flat 6 damage gun, which I couldn't really get to, and that could kind of fire with impunity. And I kind of thought after the game, had I thought a bit more about it, because there's a couple of times when that guy sort of like halved the carnivore, and then the immortal squad, because he'd shoot them both in a turn, one was more killing than the other, and the weaker squad maybe just did like 7 wounds. Hadn't took the 6 wounds from that anti-tank shot first, the carnivore probably would have lived and I'd have been able to sort of like compete on the primary a bit more. So that was something that, you know, I thought after the game, because the plate burst mortar could have just, it was only had 6 wounds, I think. If I'd have just shot it every turn, I know it gets to reanimate, but eventually I think I would have gotten it, would have been something that would have kind of given me some freedom to move around the board. Now I did get very lucky in this game, and I say very lucky because he also teleported the Catan to the objective just outside my deployment. And the other Catan kind of was coming to the side of the board. Now, there was 2 lucky moments with this Catan. One lucky moment was he charged into me with one of the Catan, and I can't remember what he picked up, but he picked up something. I think it was maybe a 10 Plague Marine squad that had got out. So my first turn, basically, I killed his race that kind of came in response. I put a lot of stuff out. I overcommitted, I think. Sorry, pardon me. I think I might have overcommitted and put out more than I needed to. And I did feel a bit vulnerable. I felt like I was going to have a bit more picked up than there was, because he failed the charge on one of the Catans, which meant one of the Plague Marine squads was going to pick up. I was able to put that back in a Rhino and save that for later in the game. And then the other Catan, the one that moved in advance and then sort of like move around the board, again just grabbing stuff. He just decided he couldn't make any saves on it. Like, it was, you know, like so I kind of was shooting. I set a carnivore to charge it, and I put the 3 predators looking at it within 12, because as he kept reminding me about the strat that sort of like, you know, gives things low ups. He was really good like that, you know. He'd be like, look, I can see that you're putting a line on it. Don't forget I can loan up it. So I was like, all right, okay, I can move within 12. So, you know, nice one, thank you. I'll move within 12. So if you loan up it, you know, doesn't really make a difference basically. She was really good like that. And so I've put the predators, because this Catan was coming. It was coming from my deployment zone. It was in like a position where I thought it was going to come in my lines and just end the game there and just bounce between everything, just picking up what it wants. Which probably is what should have happened if I'm honest. But I put the predators there. I put the carnivore there. I think, well, I'll shoot with the predators. Maybe we whittle it down like low enough that when the carnivore comes in, it gets lucky to finish it, and maybe I get lucky. And then he just decided he couldn't roll 4+ saves on it. He couldn't roll his 5+ feel no pains, and the predators decided they were going to hit and wound with most things. I mean, maybe it's the turret gun and the last cannons. Maybe they were just average, but his rolls to save were under average. But the funny thing was, it was the one, like the storm bolters and havoc launchers did most of the damage, it felt like. So that was sort of a bit comical. In the end, I didn't even need to charge the carnivore, because the predators just took it in there. So, you know, I was kind of killing more stuff than I expected. It did still feel like it was his game though, because he kind of was able to hold me to 5 on my first turn of primary, and I kind of felt like, I kind of said to him early in the game, I was like, I think he was at 8 points up, because I think he'd done better on cards or something me in a turn. I have a feeling this game's we're going to match each other's score, and you're going to win by the 8 points you've got at the start. And it seemed like it was going to go that way until there was one turning point where I got back into the game. But there were more mistakes I made, so I'm kind of, you know, losing focus of focusing on the mistakes. So one of the things that I did that worked in my favour was, I and erred with this decision, decided to do it. I charged the carnivore to pick up the unit I said at the start that scores all his points. Now, it felt like it was going to be like, they're only a cheap unit. It felt like I was going to be trading back badly. But I did it, and then the carnivore was on there, and it meant he had to sort of move things backwards to go and deal that carnivore, because he couldn't just leave it on that objective. And I did pick up them and stopped his scoring ability. So I was happy with that. Then he pushed the Immortals forward, picked up that carnivore, which is, you know, completely fair. That's what should happen. And he was bringing, then the Night, actually, that's it. Then I bought the outflanks. I always outflank a carnivore and squad of Necrons if I'm playing cards. That's just what I do. The outflank carnivore came in 9 inches to the Immortals and made the charge. And in my head, I was going to do this, but I was getting a bit overwhelmed at this point, I think, because the game felt like it was running away from me. And then I had a really good turn killing the Catan. I think I just got a bit overexcited and was like, oh my god, I might be in this after all. I made the 9-inch charge, and I forgot to tank shock. Now, I realised afterwards, if I had have tank shocked, I think I might have picked up all the immortals between the tank shock and the carnivore swinging one on the sweep, because it swung at the immortals. I think he did okay with his saves, or maybe I failed a couple of wounds, but I think I killed like 6, and then he just rezzed them all back with the res orb and stuff like that. So it didn't really mean anything. But I feel like if I had a tank shock, you don't know that rolling the dice, but the carnivore rolls a lot. I have a feeling the mortal wounds, and then the swing might have just picked up that immortal squad. And if I'd have done that the game would have swung in my favour much earlier, or certainly opened the door for me to think that I was coming back into it. So that was a mistake. I planned to do it and I didn't. Me being daft. So but I still thought I maybe should pick them up on the sweep. But even then, it's not statistically average to do that. But I was still. This was a close game. So for getting to play my strat was things you have to play it on the charge. Obviously, you play it before you roll the dice. So I remembered after I'd rolled the dice, and I think he would have let me do it, to be honest. The way the kind of opponent he was. But I decided that one we'd gone too far, and I was kind of doing it reactively because I hadn't picked up the squad as a reminder, which isn't fair, because had I just picked up the squad, I wouldn't have reminded to do the strat, and I would have had the CP in the back pocket. So that was a mistake on my part, one that I need to sort of note to self for next time. I'm trying to think what else kind of unfolded in this game. Now, I got lucky with this game, actually. So when I really came back into this game, we had to send the Catan that was pushing into my deployment zone. That one was definitely the Nightbringer. I know that one's on the weird small base, considering its like profile and size of the model on top. He had to push that back to deal the second carnivore that made him to make sure he definitely killed it, because that carnivore, he couldn't let it live, because the carnivore probably would have picked up the immortals had they just stood there, because they can't shoot into combat because they're infantry, they can't fall back and shoot, and the carnivore would have just kept coming at them. And because I put a rhino over there as well to put them in contagion, so they're all -1 on their contagion, so I was also starting to hold it on primary as well. So he had to put the Nightbringer over there, took it away from my deployment zone, which was also what put me back into the game, because I was kind of quite bunched up, and it meant he was kind of he had to go and fight on the objectives, and he couldn't kind of deal with my army as much. He had to just deal with what was on the fringes, so I was kind of left with a lot of killing power. Now the second race came forward, the second immortal squad came close to me, and I wanted to charge him with some Plague Marines. Now he very smartly he realised what I was going to do, and he reactively moved the second squad of Wraiths to kind of make a line so I couldn't go through them. Now this is where the game I came back into this fully, and it made the final 2 turns a complete nail biter. So he pushed up the second squad of Wraiths, made the line, right thing to do, 100%. He flew over the Foul Blight Spawn, so the Foul Blight Spawn that was left from the 10 Marine. He lived on 2 wounds basically from previous combats. He finished him off with 5 flying over and putting mortal wounds on, because that's the Wraith's other ability, it seems. And then he strung me out, so I couldn't charge the second squad of immortals. But I still had the 3 predators. I still had obviously the grenade strat. You can spend a CP for on any turn. I still also had a Biologist Purifier. I hadn't threw his grenades, because 2 Biologist Purifiers threw the grenades into the first Wraith squad. So at this point I thought, stuff it. Like the game is. I'm coming back into it a bit, but it's still very much his. What I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to just commit into these Wraiths. So that's what I did. I got everything out. And I got the second squad of Plague Marines, I think it was the second 5-man squad with combat weapons out. And they were planning to charge the Wraith, thinking I'll have to finish them off. I put a carnivore within charge range of where the character was, because obviously I knew there'll have to be the Wraith and one around that area. And then, to make sure he kept a reasonable charge distance. Shot all through the Predators, through the grenades. He shot everything that was in range, every plinky gun, and basically left it just through shooting again, Luck was on my side here, because he did roll a bit under average as well on his saves. He left to the character that was on the centre objective and the Wraith close to it. Now this opened up a gap for the Plague Marines that were going to charge Wraith to get the mortal squad that he'd stopped me from trying to get to. I think it was an 8 or 9 inch charge. So at that point, I had to go for it. The game was coming back in my favour, but at the same time, that other Immortal squad was going to just start picking stuff up, and it was going to swing back into his. And I made the charge. The 5 Plague Marines just picked up all 10 of the Immortals, lesser characters, and at that point I was very much back in the game, and the final 2 turns were very close. So obviously talking about mistakes, I think that's kind of the mistakes, and I've kind of given a bit of a broad sort of overarching of the game and how sound the opponent was. So there was a couple of things that happened. Obviously, we're both playing cards. At this point, I'd realised I was back in the game, so I was kind of scrambling a little bit and trying to sort of think a lot harder about how I could score points, how I could sort of, potentially pull out a win. So I started, sort of trying to setting things up for the final turns. Now I put a Rhino, I think, in a Predator. Basically, I had to take the centre objective for a card. I can't remember how I didn't shoot a Predator. I think I had to advance onto it, and it worked. Then he... So I was able to deny. I think it was maybe just deny him on the primary. I think actually, because I think it was a mission where you can score 15 on the primary, and that was nothing else. Chilling Rain was the other one. So that's all there was on the mission, and that worked. I was able to hold him to what I'd expected on the primary. So at this point he realised he had to come for the centre, because if I got one turn of 15 on the primary before the final turn, where I was going to get the end of the turn scoring. So I think I was only like 5 points down the primary at this point, and the cards were I pulled a couple of dodgy cards in terms of ones I couldn't score, but then he had a couple of dodgy cards. But in the later games, we're almost neck and neck on the cards. It was very close, and then to kind of realise, this primary turn was really important. So he came for me. He shot. Tried to kill you. He was basically getting the Plague Marines out the Rhino. He had to get the Plague Marines out the Rhino to then kill them. Because if he left the Rhino, he couldn't. I think maybe he's even infected the centre. No, I hadn't. Maybe I had infected the centre objective. Maybe that's how I got my 10. Maybe I held the centre the previous turn. I can't remember how it was anyway. But it was very important. He killed the Rhino to get the Plague Marines out or stop the Plague Marines. The Plague Marines got out anyway. I put the Plague to the far side of the Rhino. I think it was a 10 or maybe even 11-inch charge for the Nightbringer to get them. If the Nightbringer got there, he got them. But if he didn't get there, it was going to be a 15-point primary turn for me. And he rolled the 11-inch charge. And absolute fair play to him for doing it as well. He deserved that charge after the Nightbringer earlier in the game had failed the 6-inch with a re-roll to take out the Plague Marines and kind of get into my deployment before I had to go, back to a corner objective and deal with the Carnivore. So that Nightbringer made up for it, with that big charge. And of course he got the Plague Marines, and the Nightbringer just smashed through them. So that held me to 10 points on the primary. Now, at the time, I didn't think it was a big deal. To be honest, I hadn't really realised it. The only reason I've realised it now was such a big deal is because on the car home we're talking about the game, and I was talking about how fun it was, and how it sort of I would come back into it unexpectedly, and it'd been an absolute nail biter at the end. And then I was like, I lost by 4 points, and then I was like, oh crap! But if I'd have got that primary, that would have been 5 points, which obviously would have levelled the 4 point deficit and put me 1 point ahead, which was something I hadn't even thought about at the time, even after the game we were talking it through, because he was like, we both felt like, maybe the couple of unluckier cards I drew at the start, and then he got maybe some lucky ones on his point, on his turn 4 or 5, and it was kind of, so it's just cards that you lost on, don't threaten. I was like, yeah, I kind of felt that was fair at the time, but I didn't really even mind, to be fair. It's been such a fun game, because I also got lucky on my 5th turn, so which I need to add in there. I scored a perfect 5th turn in the sense of I got lucky cards, 2 ones I could get 5, and my pick was doing very minimal, so I moved, just got the 5, and I got the 15 on primary, so I got a 25-point final turn as well. So, and the other thing I did actually, this is a thing I realised, I knew at this point there was 2 firing lanes for the Carnivore, and he couldn't deal the Carnivore, and I also had some Plague Marines kind of what threatened the centre objective with the Nightbringer on in my final turn. So I knew if I put the Carnivore away, it couldn't be shot by the 2 shooting units, because there was a way to do it with its movement, which is what I did instead of trying to kill the Nightbringer, which he thought I was going to do. I knew that was going to be a mistake. And the Carnivore just ran on the centre objective to get me those primary points, and that kind of was the best I could do, and that's how I got my sort of last 15. But yeah, absolute brilliant game. You know, like I say, I feel like I've talked about this before. Maybe this one's been more of a sort of like a battle report recap where I've talked about the good things, but the game was so fun and so good that, like, you know, I don't mind. Like, very rarely would I come away from like a tournament and feel like a 4-1 was, you know, within smelling, tasting distance, and, you know, not be frustrated at myself for, you know, for something happening in the game. But it was just by far the best game I played. One of the best tournament games I've played in a very long time, because it was so competitive and so friendly, and at no point was there any point I didn't know what his rules were, because he explained it to me all the time. And yeah, just a great game, you know. So I felt really happy with that. So moving on then, because I'll bring this to a close, because I've ran over a bit. Like I said, try and keep these an hour wherever I can. So moving forward then, so obviously we've got a balanced status list due. Now, the thing in my list is I feel like my list is going to go up in points. I feel like the carnivores, as I say, are probably too cheap. There was a leak today, which I don't know if is real or fake. As I say, it's out where Nurglings might go to 45 points, and apparently won't be able to do actions. Zero OC units won't be able to do actions. I don't know if I believe that. That's what makes me think they might be fake. But if Nurglings go to 45 points and can't do actions, I don't know. Maybe you put one in there still for move blocking, but I don't know. So Nurglings, if they go up, let's say hypothetically Nurglings go up 10 points each to 20 points for the 2 units, so 10 times 2 is 20. Carnivores, let's say they go up, let's say 10 points each, because I put them down from 60. They wouldn't like to put them back to where they were. So let's say 150. So that's 30. At 20 is 50. And then I think Plague Marines could well go up 10 points, which is another 60. So my list, I think, could go up 110 points. If that happens, I think what I'd have to do is the Plague Burst Crawler, as much as it's useful, it is the thing in my list. It isn't essential. So I think I'd have to drop the Plague Burst Crawler, keep everything else the same, and then maybe it's just bringing a squad of Poxwalkers to sort of stand on the home field objective instead. You know, that, or maybe even drop the second squad of Nurglings and try and fit something in with them with their points. I don't know. I think Beast and Nurgle could even be quite good to sort of, you know, deep striking and do what they were doing, or maybe even hold the home field, because Beast and Nurgle's not really susceptible to out a line of sight shooting like 10 Poxwalkers are, and still does the same screening job. But I'm listing that, you know, as sort of things where this list could evolve next. Obviously, we're about to start a new ITC season. UKTC season finishes around the London GT, so, you know, that to by the by. But I know globally people pay more attention to the ITC. But of course, world rankings aren't everything. I mean, especially when we live in the UK, and, you know, I always think it's a bit silly when I've got like so many points from like a 3-2 at the Super Major compared to like coming second at like, you know, a 20-30 person RTT. Like, I always think it's a bit weird that, but at the same time, it is what it is. You know, it's the same in America. If you go to play the GW events, you know, there's silly points on available, and also the Las Vegas Open again. I see you get silly points for, you know, for sort of coming like, you know, in the top 200 and stuff. So I suppose it's everyone's in the same boat. So I've done well, but it's because I've done okay at Super Majors, and like my 4-2 at the 6th round, you know, Games Workshop when I attended and stuff in Manchester. So, you know, but I'm happy with that. Like I say, I do take the Death Guard ranking, if I'm honest, because, like I say, it's a game within a game. If you're not going to sort of like win the event, which I never expect to do, you know, try and, like, you know, be the best Death Guard player, blah blah blah. So I feel happy with that at the end of the season. But going forward next year, I think I'm going to keep the list the same. So while I'm talking about seasons and while I'm talking about points, potential changes where I could or couldn't go, I think it's a nice way to round out the episode. I think I'll drop the Plague Burst Crawler because I think everything else works quite well. I suppose the other things on Points Watch might be the Biologist Putrefiers as well, because I think they are quite good. If all those things go up, I'd just drop the Plague Burst Crawler. I think I very much doubt it will go up more than 165 points. Maybe it's a second squad of Nurglings if they can't do actions anymore because they've got no OC. I don't know if that's true. This is just a leak that someone saw online this morning, sharing one of our chats. So we'll see. But that's, I think, where I'll pivot for my particular list. So we'll have to see, basically, because I think this balance status slate does sound like there's going to be some big changes, certainly with points. Maybe there's a few actual rules on the problematic factions like Eldar, Chaos Space Marines, maybe Necrons, just some some little bits. But I think Necrons are too new, and I think maybe Ctans are too cheap, but they're not. They've already done like the FAQ on the Immortals and stuff, so I think Necrons probably are fine for where they are at the moment. Let them have a few more games before they sort of come down and see where things shake up in the meta. Because obviously, if Death Guard have point changes and the Chaos Knights and things, and maybe let's see where we end up. We're at this point, I think we're pretty much at a 50% win rate, which I think is perfect where the faction is. If we get any cuts, it'd be nice for the internal balance for TP units to go down, but we'll see. Like I say, we'll do a video on the channel with the 3 of us or 2 of us, depending when it drops, because we will try and live stream it on the evening. I do some evening shifts at Element Games, as I mentioned, as a part-time job, and stuff like that, so I might not be able to go on the stream, but Dave and Aidan, if not all 3 of us, or maybe it's me and Dave, me and Aidan, whatever, 2 of us at least will do a stream on the day the balance status list drops, to sort of like talk up where we think Death Guard have kind of fallen. But just in case I'm not on that stream, I thought I would sort of give my points of where my list might change, because obviously in this one I did do the recap and take the time to run through it for the people who maybe weren't already aware. But I'm going to wrap this up there now. As I say, for those who haven't listened to the most recent podcast episode, we are going to try and record them fortnightly, make more of an effort to get caught up on Spotify, which is on me. Across them all, try and maybe try and do a Spotify dump and just get them all on there, then try and go regularly from that point. Death Guard Dave is now a regular co-host with me and Aidan, so there's now 3 of us. There's more content. Dave's going to look to do some solo stuff, same as me and Aidan do. Some more Death Guard stuff coming. Obviously stay tuned, like, subscribe, and please leave comments. I don't reply on YouTube through Discussing Resilient YouTube. It's Aidan who does that. To stop confusion, I just let Aidan do those comments, so people know if it's me or him who's spoken. I do try and comment on my own channel though, so if someone has questions or thoughts, I always try and put something forward if I think there's something I can add or answer someone's question. So please feel free to do that. Obviously, but like, subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next one. And thanks so much for listening, guys. See you soon.